Several months ago, I decided I would begin video recording my exploration of historical and conflict gaming, hex encounters, miniatures, and even an occasional reference to or replays of computer war games. This is another installment in this ongoing documentary. We are back here at the Battle of Patay. This is from the game Henry V. Robert Markham's Royalists and Roundheads series, published by 3W in 1993. Well, first of all, from experience, I figured out that hand adjustment of the camera is going to be a necessary evil. So far, it's the best way I've figured out to record what's going on with enough clarity. Visual clarity. I went ahead and played 2 more turns, but wasn't able to record it. I was using the camera for another purpose, so so I played game turns 3 and 4, I think, from where we left off at the last video. A lot has happened. I'll talk about that in a minute. A lot has happened in these 2 intervening turns. First of all, the original English line here, and the rear line here, the English right has clearly been broken through. So the question now is, can the French exploit this advance on the English right, and as well, the question is, can the English reestablish a defensive line sufficiently strong to carry them through to the end of the scenario without taking too many losses. So in the intervening turns we had several different key game mechanics that I wish I had been able to record. We had some orders changes, or attempted orders changes, as well as actual orders changes. So Lahire back here had so many busted up units that he automatically switched to a muster order. So he's basically trying to reform his forces back here. Dunois is still advancing, but Dunois on the French right is still advancing against the English left, but Dunois will probably try to transition to an attack shortly. Richemont is still under an attack. Oh, I'm sorry, no, Richemont, okay. Alençon is still under the attack. Alençon was the original French force that crashed into the English right. It was Richemont that I raced up from the rear here with Joan of Arc here. It's Richemont that is trying to bust through the English center right and maybe try to exploit what's going on here. So Richemont, as the overall commander, does not, and he has a little dash. The overall commander has the dash for his command rating on the left. He has the dash because he does not have to roll to change his order. He just changes his own order. So he changed his order to attack and is trying to get up into the battle here and exploit this, English chaos here. So there we are. The English are sticking with Stan. There probably are no better orders for the English still. the English, in the process of all this activity, have now lost three of their longbowmen. They lost 3 longbowmen to one French man-at-arms. That's where we stand loss-wise. I probably should be doing a better job of recording the demoralization levels. I need to start doing that. The English have used a lot of arrows without enough opportunity to replenish, and that's interesting. But what I noticed, and I guess this is intended, I think that this design part, I think this part of the design is intended to be historically accurate. So these are the French crossbowmen. They started firing a lot once they got within that 2 hex range. Remember, the English longbowmen, they can start firing 3 hexes out. The French have to close to within 2. And then once a bunch of these French crossbowmen got within range, once they got within range, like this, like these crossbowmen here, these crossbowmen here, moving up in the center. Once these crossbowmen got within range, they started firing at every opportunity, and it was pretty incredible with all their fire how ineffectual it was. I think in all the firing, I remember one nice solid hit. I think that was a 1 hit against an English longbowman, which eliminated the unit as a 1-step unit. So that was good for the French, but otherwise just a lot of misses. And again, I think that's supposed to be historically accurate. One rules issue, and I think I identified this before playing several years back, but I came into it again. So to go through the issue, we have talking about rallying. So what we have here is this is a combat unit that is routed. Okay, so this is a French infantryman who's who has routed. And here we have a skirmisher. We'll talk about the skirmishers and rallying, but the regular unit, again, to review the rules very specifically, rally during the owning player's rally phase. We're talking about the French rally phase in this case. Routed units within the command span of their leader. So the French infantry unit is within the command span of his leader right here, or within the command span of their overall leader. The overall leader happens to be way up here, but it doesn't matter because he's within the command span of his leader, and not in an enemy ZOC. It's clearly not in an enemy ZOC. Check morale. These units check morale. So right there, parsing it out, it's not something you choose to do. You check morale for these units, because if they fail, they continue to route 3 more hexes, which of course means they get 1, 2, maybe 3 attempts to rally before they will be outside the command span of their leader. And then once they're outside that command span, they will sit in a routed state and not roll at all. They won't have any opportunity to rally again until they fulfill these rule stipulations, right? All good enough for a combat unit. Okay. Yikes. Now, when a skirmish unit, let's say that this French crossbowman is routed. All right, so this is a French crossbow unit. What happens to him? So we start with the same, to go through the rules again, right? So within the command span of their leader. What leader? Skirmish units don't have leaders. they will be white or clear or some form of neutral coloring, as opposed to the combat units that are color-coded for their leader and formation. Skirmish units don't have that at all. I guess they have an overall leader, like every other unit on the board, right? But they don't have a formation leader. So they're not an enemy Zoc. Check morale. What do we do? One way to parse the rules is to say that skirmish units are never out of command. So if they're never out of command, command span doesn't apply to them, in which case you could just drop that part of the rule, just drop it completely and say what you're left with is skirmish unit is routed, it's your friendly rally phase. If you're if you're not in an enemy Zoc, you check for morale. You could say that, I mean that certainly could be inferred from the rules. However, the problem that I ran into is that if you interpret the rules that way, you wind up with basically super skirmish units that are always attempting to rally, no matter where they are on the board. And so, in a military history sense, why are skirmish units constantly able to attempt rallying, and other combat units are not? That doesn't make sense. So, anyways, none of it makes sense. This is the nature of these rules, that you basically have to decide how you're going to interpret them. When I went through all of this review, I also noticed, well, although you cannot infer this directly from the rules, you could say that as long as skirmish units are within the command span of any leader, they may attempt to rally. As long as they're within the command span of a leader, including the overall leader, obviously, they check for rally. And that's the way I'm going to go, but I'm saying you cannot, I cannot infer that from the rules as I read them. This is more of a workable solution, I guess. A workable solution. So that's that. I'll be playing that way. As long as skirmish units are within the command span of a friendly leader, they will check for rally. And one other thing I was thinking about the system the other day is I was thinking, I wonder if, and I don't know the answer to this, I wonder if anybody has attempted to adapt the Royalists and Roundheads type system, in particular the command system, the command chits, adapt this to the 20th century. World War II, battalion level, battle level games. Yeah, adapt the Royalist and Roundheads type system. I think it would be interesting, and it seems quite doable. There are definitely some adaptations to make for 20th century communications, 20th century staff organization, and so forth, but it would seem doable, and I'm just curious if that has been tried and what that might look like. Another few examples of rules mechanics that unfortunately I didn't capture on video before is, for example, here the assessing, basically retreating, routing and retreating. So you have the English men-at-arms here. They were over here and they routed. And the question is, they cannot go through any of these friendly units. They cannot pass through. That's not allowed at all. If he goes here, he's clearly in an enemy Zoc. If he goes this way, he quickly runs into, I guess he could go around this way. Which actually, when you go through the rules, doesn't appear to be specifically disallowed. The bottom line is, when you look through the retreat rules, I think you'll notice I, in any case, did not notice any reference to friendly board side or anything like that. The rules as I read them is you have to attempt to move away from your current location as long as you follow a list of about a half a dozen restrictions. You can't enter enemy ZOC, you cannot enter an enemy occupied hex, obviously. You cannot normally pass through friendly occupied hexes, with an exception for retreating skirmish units, and so forth. But the result was from here, that English unit routed between these enemy ZOCs in this direction, because the point is that if you cannot satisfy these retreat rules at all, you're going to take a step loss. That's the significance. So the question is, does the English unit take a step loss here because he cannot retreat, towards his friendly lines? But there's no reference to that at all. He can legally retreat this way, so therefore I guess he must, and he does not take that step loss as a result. We'll be back.